June 4, 1942. Japanese pilot struck an American carrier, scoring direct hits. They watched it burn, reporting it destroyed. Hours later, they found another carrier, steaming at 20 knots, flight deck clear. They attacked again, convinced they had sunk a second ship. Their reports claimed 2 American carriers destroyed. The stark truth, it was USS Yorktown, attacked twice. A 550-pound Japanese bomb slammed into Yorktown's flight deck. It ripped through the ship's structure, detonating deep within. The massive blast killed or wounded over 60 men, annihilating an entire repair party. It blew watertight doors from their hinges and warped steel bulkheads across 6 compartments. This single direct hit inflicted catastrophic damage, a devastating blow. 8 near misses hammered the hull. Shockwaves transmitted through incompressible seawater sprang rivets and split hull seams from frame 100 to frame 130. Fuel tanks ruptured. Yorktown bled oil for 10 miles. This wasn't just battle damage. This was structural trauma, the kind that takes months to fix. And they weren't wrong. Standard procedure required cutting out bent frames, fabricating new steel, riveting it into place. Before any welding near fuel tanks, the ship had to be gas-freed. A purging process that alone took 24 to 72 hours. 90 days was the professional answer. The map showed vast distances. Nimitz had 2 operational carriers, Enterprise and Hornet. 4 Japanese carriers against 2 American was a slaughter. But 4 against 3? That was a fight. Yorktown was Nimitz's only variable, a critical third deck. 90 days was the professional answer, but the command was absolute. 3 days. An impossible timeline. The men knew the stakes, marching ready for the impossible mission ahead. The impossible timeline meant breaking every rule. Gas-freeing regulations were waived. Welders struck arcs on the hull, sparks flying. Fuel tanks below still held explosive vapors. One wrong spark, one misstep, and the dry dock could become a crater. Lives were at stake. The Navy Yard erupted. Immense damage demanded immediate action. 1,400 workers, pulled from every other project, descended upon her. No formal planning meeting was held, no perfect parts list existed. Foremen, working from instinct and memory, directed their teams on the fly. Men gathered, making rapid decisions. Repairs erupted across every deck, tackling multiple problems simultaneously. It was organized chaos. The flight deck, just 3 inches of pine over 1/10 of an inch of steel, was ripped open. Workers patched these gaping holes with plywood and steel plates. For the hull seams, standard procedure demanded cutting out damaged frames and riveting new steel. That process would take weeks. They had days. So, defying peacetime regulations, crews simply welded steel plates over the burst seams from the outside, a crude vital steel bandage on broken ribs. The repairs broke every rule in the book. The flight deck, scarred by explosions, was not rebuilt to specification. It was patched. Plywood and steel plates were spiked into the timber decking, not pretty but flat enough to land a plane. The hull was not re-riveted. Instead, workers lap welded the seams, a faster, weaker, but watertight fix. 3 of 9 boilers were too damaged to repair in 72 hours, simply isolated, leaving Yorktown with reduced power. Damaged electrical systems. Electricians ran temporary jumpers, bypassing severed conduits. Carpenters called for more lumber and sheet metal even as they worked. There was no time to requisition proper materials. They used what they had on hand. This was not a repair. It was triage. Yorktown did not need to be perfect. She needed to float. She needed to launch planes. And she needed to do it for 3 days. Her survival was paramount. Her air group was a desperate assembly, survivors from original squadrons, planes borrowed from other carriers, and fresh replacements. Naval personnel worked to integrate new pilots and aircraft. This was not a warship sailing to battle. This was a hastily prepared force rushing to the fight. Yorktown launched her planes. Ordnance was loaded. Her air group helped cripple Soryu, sharing in the destruction of Hiryu's flight operations. The patched carrier pulled its weight, but Hiryu, Japan's last operational carrier, struck back. At 14:14 hours, 18 Val dive bombers found Yorktown. Japanese forces aimed to wipe out the American Navy. 3 bombs struck. One blew a hole in the flight deck, another punched through the stack, extinguishing boiler fires. Yorktown lost power. The Japanese pilots departed. They looked back and saw what they expected: a burning wreck dead in the water. They reported the American carrier destroyed. Yorktown's battle-tested damage control team sprang into action. Firefighters smothered flames. Engineers relit boilers and smoke-filled compartments. Deck crews patched the flight deck. The 12-foot hole was covered in just 25 minutes. All fires were out within 30. The ship fought back. By 1540, 1 hour and 26 minutes after being declared dead, Yorktown made 20 knots. She launched planes. No visible damage. Hiryu was not finished. Lieutenant Joichi Tomonaga led a second wave, 10 Kate torpedo bombers. Their mission: finish the American fleet. Pilots were briefed. The first carrier was burning and sinking. Find the others. But when they spotted Yorktown, she steamed at 20 knots, flight deck clear, no smoke, combat air patrol aloft. Tomonaga's pilots looked at their target, then their briefing. This could not be the same ship. They radioed Hiryu. "We have found a second carrier, commencing attack." 2 torpedoes slammed into Yorktown's port side. This damage was fatal. The ship listed heavily, reaching 26 degrees. Captain Elliot Buckmaster ordered abandon ship. The Japanese pilots reported 2 American carriers destroyed. They believed they had struck 2 separate ships. In reality, they had hit USS Yorktown twice. Enterprise and Hornet steamed on, untouched. This critical intelligence error would prove fatal for Japan. Yorktown absorbed the fleet's punishment. Meanwhile, American dive bombers located Hiryu. By evening, all 4 Japanese carriers were sinking or sunk. This decisive air battle turned the tide. Yorktown became a damage sponge, absorbing attacks intended for Enterprise and Hornet. The Japanese believed they had evened the odds: 2 American carriers for their 4. They were wrong by a factor of 2. This confusion was critical. Admiral Nagumo, convinced he had crippled the American fleet, pressed his attack. He lost everything: 4 Japanese fleet carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu. Gone. This was the striking power that attacked Pearl Harbor, devastated the British at Ceylon, and swept the Pacific unchallenged. All destroyed in a single afternoon. Without Yorktown, the odds were 4 Japanese carriers against 2 American. Her presence, a 3rd deck, changed everything. Though Japanese submarine I-168 would sink her 2 days later, Yorktown mattered. 1,400 Pearl Harbor workers defied a 90-day estimate, completing critical repairs in just 72 hours. Nimitz gambled. Damage control teams patched her flight deck in minutes. The Japanese could not believe what they saw. Yorktown was there. Yorktown did not die beaten. She died having changed the war. The 72-hour repair was deemed impossible. 90 days was the professional estimate, the correct standard for peacetime. But Nimitz faced war. He had just 3 days. Rear Admiral Aubrey Fitch and his engineers were not wrong in their 90-day assessment. They followed established rules. Nimitz simply rewrote them. 1,400 workers toiled around the clock. They welded burst seams, patched flight decks with plywood. Construction continued even as the ship sailed. They made the impossible timeline possible. The Japanese struck Yorktown twice at Midway. They reported sinking 2 carriers, but there was only 1 ship, and she was never supposed to be there at all.